So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Catherine Pellenq. I'm talking from France, and I'm going to present a study on psychosocial risk of young workers. So you see the slide one, and does work have a positive or negative effect on young person's mind and psychosocial well-being? What is the perception working children have of their lives and of their future? These are the questions we try to answer. Susan Gunn has shown last time that young people might be especially vulnerable to psychological injury in the workplace due to risk factors such as low status jobs, criticism, sexual abuse, and so on. This is why it has been included a psychological component in the occupational health study of young workers in the brick industry. I have just recently completed the analysis of the psychosocial data, and I would like to share with you some of our findings. First, however, I will give you a brief overview of the study. Then I would like to show you how we carried out the psychological component and how we collected and analyzed the data. And finally, I will present the results. This study was undertaken in the brick industries of 4 countries: Afghanistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. The brick industry was selected because it has such a high proportion of workers under the age of 18, and it is widespread in the world, found in over 20 countries in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. The study population consisted in 1,555 respondents between the ages of 11 and 18. 915 of these were children who worked in the brick industry, and 640 were a comparison group of non-working children from the same locality, of the same age, of the same economic status, and speaking the same language. How we collected the data. As I said, our objective was to understand the children's own perceptions of their lives and work. In order to do that, we needed to find a protocol or guide for the interviews that was simple and easy enough to use so that it can be employed by non-professionals and carried out on a mass scale. In an occupational risk assessment, there is no time to do an in-depth psychological examination, and there is no one with the expertise to do it. And as you know, that the place where child labor occurs and where young workers suffer from abuse are not the places where you are likely to find professional psychologists. So now is slide 4, please. So our first task was to develop, to test, and validate a new instrument assessing psychosocial well-being that fit the criteria of being simple, short, and easy to use. We found little existing instruments that we could use because they were designed for adults and for a developed country. So we were obliged to develop it from scratch on the basis of theory and previous research on well-being. The result was a 43-item questionnaire, which is now available on the ILO website. It is called the IPO. You can see our questionnaire, its structure, on slide 5. Our questionnaire has 2 parts. One part examines the general psychological states that are found in all children. They are the green circles on the left side of the slide. They represent the 3 main areas or dimensions of psychological well-being, in positive or in negative. These dimensions are emotional expression, social factors, and sense of mistreatment. In our study, this part was administered by both working children and the comparison group of non-working children. The second part of the questionnaire examines psychological states that are specifically work-related. It is administered only to the working children. These are the blue circles on the right side of the slide. They are the areas that are critical in the work environment. These dimensions are stress at work, self-esteem at work, and supervision at work. Slide 6. You can see examples of the questions that measure the psychological states at work, such as: do you feel under pressure to work fast and hard for stress dimension? Or do you think you have the skills needed to do your job well for self-esteem dimension? Or do people at work teach you what to do for supervision dimension? Slide 7 shows the questions that measure the psychological states of working and non-working children, such as: do you feel sad or angry or lonely for emotional dimension? Or do you have good friends that support you? Or do you feel loved by your family for social dimension? Or do you feel rejected for mistreatment dimension? After an extensive testing and some revisions, our questionnaire shows a good level of reliability. Okay, the impact now. The results give us some of the first hard quantitative evidence showing the effect of such risk factors. Our findings are as follows. Slide 8. Work has a pronounced deleterious effect on all psychological dimensions which we studied. Slide 9. Girls suffer significantly greater negative impacts than boys. Slide 10. Interestingly, school appears to have protective effects on psychological well-being. But although it is widely believed that working alongside the family also has a protective effect, that is, it is safer and more satisfying for young people, our studies show that it does not. Slide 11. Finally, we assumed that migrant children would show more stress and other negative emotions, and we assumed also that working children who experienced a work-related injury or illness during the last year would also show more negative psychological effects. But these, in fact, had much less influence than we expected. To conclude, this study shows how useful it is to compare the physical and psychological status of working youth with local non-working youth, because it shows that in spite of the fact that adults keep children away from the kilns and from doing the most hazardous tasks, and in spite of the fact that adolescents above age 14 are legally allowed to work, the young people working in the brick industry can be classified as child labor due to the psychological risk alone. Above all, the nature and severity of the psychological stresses demonstrated by these results underscore why we urge you to include the psychosocial component in any workplace investigation which you might undertake. What we have learned is that psychological effects, A, can be severe, threatening a young person's future in the same ways as physical injuries, and B, they can be measured with fair degree of confidence. Thanks for your attention.